Well, with Venezuela's economy already in crisis, just how much more of an effect could this re-election have? Well, let's get more analysis. Michael Shifter, president of the Inter-American Dialogue, joins me here in studio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, thank you. So, to what degree do you think Maduro's re-election, in terms of the economic situation, does that help it, or can we expect more of the same?
I don't think there's any sign that anything's going to change. In the past, Maduro has talked about some measures and some reforms, but then nothing happens. His advisors stick to the same set of policies, and the policies haven't produced results, but that hasn't forced them to change.
Now, we've seen from certain countries around the world, including the US, they've been calling this a fraudulent election, and as expected, the US placed sanctions on Venezuela to block Maduro from selling off the country's debt and public assets. How do you see that affecting the broader economic situation in Venezuela?
Well, I think it's going to hurt. I think what was said before is true. The tightening the screws a little bit. It doesn't mean, but at the same time, Venezuela, even though its oil economy is collapsing, it still produces 1.5 million barrels a day. And so it can still limp along for a while. It can't limp along like that forever. I think it's being hit very hard. And so at some point, something's got to give. Whether politically or economically, obviously that's its Achilles heel, it's its economy, 13,000% inflation, scarcity, 5,000 Venezuelans are leaving the country every day. So it's really a dramatic situation. Things will only get worse, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be a change in government.
And we certainly saw a very low amount of voter turnout, some voter apathy there. To what degree does that help or hurt Maduro or the opposition in trying to further their economic goals?
I think it hurts Maduro. I think he was hoping for high turnout, for better turnout. He wants legitimacy. That's why he called this election. That's why he called it now. It was supposed to be in December. He called it now. He thought he'd be in a strong political position, and if he had a high turnout and substantial support, he'd be able to claim legitimacy. So it does hurt him in terms of that purpose, but it doesn't hurt him in terms of him being closer to being out of power. He controls everything, and the opposition doesn't have a lot of leverage at all. The opposition's divided itself. It's weak. They boycott it. They may feel good about the boycott, but they're still there, and Maduro is still in power until something gives.
And looking at the economy itself, obviously very oil dependent, what's being done to really tap into that? And how is what's happening with this election affecting the global oil market?
Well, this election per se, I don't think affects the global oil market, but Venezuela does play a role in keeping the quotas down and trying to put prices up. Part of their economic policy is a wish, and a wish is that oil prices go back up to the levels that they were when Hugo Chavez was there, and that would solve Venezuela's problems instead of taking tough measures. And so it's doing whatever it can, and it does play a role in trying to boost oil prices on the global market.
Now, in terms of the economic tools or financial tools that Maduro has at his disposal to really tackle hyperinflation and the crisis that the country is in, what does he have?
Well, he's made some gimmicks and talked about cutting 3 zeros off of, in the currency, and but nothing really very serious. I think most economists agree that he's just kind of posturing. But clearly, there are options that were offered by his opponent, Henry Falcon, who didn't do very well, but he has talked about dollarizing the economy. It's an idea that worked in Ecuador and other Latin American countries that were suffering high levels of inflation. So clearly there are measures that are out there, but there are things that they would go against the kind of the orthodoxy of Hugo Chavez. And I think Maduro wants to be faithful to the revolution, even though the results have been so tragic and so terrible.
And something else Venezuela is sorely in need of is foreign investment. What is it going to take to get more foreign investors into the country, and who potentially could they turn to? Well,
right now, foreign investors have left and are leaving. Their departure is accelerating. So there aren't a lot of foreign investors that are coming into the country. There are some that have been there for a while, some oil companies and other companies that are still making money, and so they're going to stay there. But it's certainly not an attractive place for investment, and there's great uncertainty about what's going to happen. The economy's in terrible shape. The government is tightening its grip, but investors don't like uncertainty. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of new investment in Venezuela.
And just very quickly, we have about 20 seconds. In terms of your outlook for Venezuela's economy based on where it is now, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's gonna hit bottom at some point, whether it's a major default or something happens, and there's going to be a crisis that's going to force some real changes. They're going to be painful changes, and its recovery is going to take a very long time, and it's going to require support and assistance from the international community, the International Monetary Fund, and other financial institutions.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Michael Shifter there, President of Inter-American Dialogue.